feel it in my bones, you're about to move. I feel it in the wind, you're about to ride in. You said that you would pour your spirit out. You said that you would fall on sons and daughters. So come. I feel it in my bones, you're about to move. I feel it in the wind, you're about to ride in. You said that you would pour your spirit out. You said that you would fall on sons and daughters. So like the rain, come drench us in love. Let your glory rush in like a flood. 'Cause we are fixed on this one thing, to know your goodness, to see your glory, and we're transformed by this one thing, to know your presence, to see your beauty. I can see it now, your kingdom come. I can hear it now, the sounds of heaven. You said that if we ask, we'll receive. So we're asking for the greater measure. So like the rain, come drench us in love. Let your power rush in like a flood. 'Cause we are fixed on this one thing, to know your goodness, to see your glory, and we're transformed by this one thing, to know your presence, to see your beauty. So come and pull on through, Spirit move. We're ready for you to come and blow on through. Come and do what only you can do. So come and blow on through, Spirit move. We're ready for you to come and blow on through. Come and do what only you can do. 'Cause we are fixed on this one thing, to know your goodness, to see your glory, and we're transformed by this one thing, to know your presence, to see your beauty. I feel it in my bones, you're about to move. I feel it in the wind, you're about to ride in. You said that you would pour your spirit out. You said that you would fall on sons and daughters. So come. can see it now, your kingdom come. I can hear it now, the sounds of heaven. You said that if we ask, we'll receive. So we're asking for the greater measure. So like the rain, come drench us in love. Let your power rush in like a flood. 'Cause we are fixed on this one thing, to know your goodness, to see your glory, and we're transformed by this one thing, to know your presence, to see your beauty.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Family Heart Talk. This is episode number 4. My name is Lillian, and I will be the host of today's talk entitled Navigating Through the Pain of Grief and Loss. We are privileged today to have with us 3 special friends on the panel, and they will share with us their understanding of today's topic from their personal ministry experiences as well as from a survey finding. First of all, we have Dr. Wong Moi Lee with us. Yeah, she is an adjunct lecturer at a local seminary, and she teaches basic counseling and spiritual formation courses. She has behind her about 30 years, Dr. Moi Lee, 30 years of pastoral and Christian ministry. And she has recently written a book called Walking Through Grief. Wow. Yeah, we look forward to hearing from you, Moi Lee. Yeah, we also have David Wong with us. Yeah, David wore many hats in the corporate world as well as in the marketplace ministries. He was the former advisor of Tupperware Brands Corporation. And prior to that, he was the CEO of Tupperware Malaysia and Singapore. Currently, he is an advisor and consultant to many companies. He is a founder of Business and Professional Ministry and currently mentors businessmen and in their business, life, and ministry. He is with us today with his experience with very personal grief and loss. Yeah. Right. We also have with us Pastor Lim Kia Sing. And Pastor Kia Sing was a banker before he joined our church, FGAKL, as a pastor now 17 years. Yeah, Pastor Kia Sing. Currently, he is overseeing the pastoral department and many other ministries in our church. He is very well loved for his shepherd's heart. And I think those of you who are here, you will know that. And especially for those who are going through difficult life challenges, such as grief and loss. So welcome again. Yeah, thank you for being with us. And we'll begin now with the first question about this. Yeah. So the thing is, today people world over, we all know, they're deeply impacted by the pandemic and many catastrophes around the world. And grief and loss that we are experiencing today is indeed unprecedented. Yeah. So there is loss of jobs, loss of intimate relationships, loss of opportunities, loss of life. So I'd like you to share with us, David, that in your corporate and personal life, you've experienced different type of losses. Would you share with us how do the grief of these losses compare in their impact?
Sure. Loss is a natural part of life. When someone lost something important, they grieve. Whether it's a loss of a job, loss of business income, or loss of relationship, or loss of a loved one. A person's job is very important to them. It forms a part of their income. They provide the income. It provides a sense of identity. In many cases, a sense of belonging for a person. And it is in the context of a job where people develop and nurture and are able to live a certain lifestyle. So when they lose a job, they lost something very important and they grieve. Yeah. I also, but the loss of a job, uh, uh, the response to a loss of job could be initially shock, and then there could be bargaining with bosses, or later with God, and then there could be even anger and bitterness if that's not resolved. But the loss of a job can be mitigated or cushioned somewhat when we can provide some practical solution. For example, several years ago, I had to close down our business in Thailand, and there was anger, there was tears, there was sadness. But I provided very generous severance packages. I also provided outplacement services to provide career counseling and how to find new jobs, and that somehow cushion and really helps. I also work with businessmen, and during this COVID-19 period and MCO period, many of these businessmen lost huge sum of their business income, and as a result, some could hardly sleep 2 hours a night. Some who wake up in the middle of the night feeling pain in the chest, likened to a heart attack, and those are huge challenges. Uh, but even with business losses, you still can overcome that. Usually, loss of job and loss of businesses and business income are not something that you get stuck with forever. You can get over it. But a loss of a relationship is something else. A loss of a relationship, broken relationship, is like a fabric that's torn apart, and that is more difficult to handle. I liked, the Japanese have an art form called kintsugi, where if a pot is broken, they will repair it with glue infused with gold dust. And as a result, the pot has like a gold veins flowing through the part that we placed together. And they have a certain beauty that they don't have before. And in many cases, they become more valuable than before. And that reminds me of First Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7, where Apostle Paul said, "We are the light of Christ shine into our hearts. We are like fragile clay pots, holding
Mm.
these treasures." So even with broken relationship, the Lord can mend and heal those broken relationships. But when the loss of the relationship is due to the death of a loved one, that is devastating. That's really devastating. With the loss of a job, over time, you can still find another job. With loss of business income, with the right strategies, with a change of a business model, there's hope for a turnaround in a business. But
Right.
when you lose a loved one, you lose the loved one forever. They're not going to come back. You can't replace him or her. You don't just lose something precious. You lose someone you love, someone whom you love,
Mm.
someone who love you in return, who laughs with you, who brings so much joy to you, someone who sometimes irritates and infuriates you, but still is someone that you love, and he or she will never come back again, and that's
Mm.
devastating.
Right.
Last year in March, I lost my daughter Joy, my
Right.
eldest daughter, to cardiac heart arrest, and
Mm.
that was shocking. Our whole family was shocked. It was devastating. I felt helpless. I felt forsaken. We were just in the great trauma. Uh, we just do not know what to do, and that is devastating. Devastating. Uh,
Right.
but but over time, we are beginning to learn that even in the midst of grief and loss, there is hope, and we are learning how to get out of this grief and loss and have hope. In life, there's always gain and loss. With every
Correct.
loss, there is a gain. For example, Jesus
That's
said, "What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul?" The Apostle
right.
Paul said, "Count everything as loss for the surpassing worth of gaining Christ." So we're learning
Mm.
that even with loss, there is gain.
Right. Yeah, thank you for sharing, David. So there is indeed, all losses are very grievous indeed. Yeah, but the loss of loved ones really, indeed, it's devastating, as you said. And so for that reason, I think for the time that we have, we will be focusing more on the grief of loss of loved ones and loss of lives, yeah? Although other types of losses during this time is major as well, right? Yeah. So, Dr. Moily, you recently did a survey of the Malaysian Christians, yeah, about their attitudes and approaches to grieving the loss of loved ones, the loss of lives, yeah. What did you find to be significantly helpful or unhelpful in the way Malaysian Christians, I specifically say Malaysian Christians, yeah, Asians, we are different, yeah. How do they manage grief? Maybe you share with us.
Yes. Well, I interviewed 20 persons who have lost their spouses. I think majority of them have said that they were very, very much helped at the beginning of their bereavement. Because Malaysian Christians are generally community-based. So when the death is reported, many of them have said that the church rally around them, right? And they take care of all the funeral, they come alongside them. Physical presence is very important to us. And it's as if they're saying, hey, you're not alone. We are together with you in this grief. So many of them are much help. And there are very practical things that church members have helped them in transportation, taking them to the banks, EPF, SOXO, or wherever they want to go. And many also brought cooked food for them to make sure that they are also eating. So in this way, they are comforted.
Right. Practical help, right?
And many widows have said that Malaysian churches are generally very generous. One widow said she has been receiving a monthly check from the church for 2 years.
Wow.
So the financial help is always welcome.
Right.
So these are the helpful things, but the unhelpful things is that after 2 weeks, there are no visits and no phone call. It's as if the underlying message is you should now move on already. Move on. All right. So what they would appreciate is continuous group support. Just a phone call now and then to check on them that they are doing okay. And don't compare their grief. Don't compare their grief. They appreciate when we allow them to mourn without judging them. So these are some of the aspects that have helped them.
Right. So support around them, whether from church, family, and friends, are very helpful, right? To make them feel that they are not alone. Yeah. So it's a continuous support, you are saying, yeah. So it's not just during the time when they are experiencing the loss itself, but a continuous support would be very appreciated, right? Yeah, in that sense. Right.
Especially if it's their first time coming back to church, they don't have to sit alone. Because if they have been sitting with their spouse, and one widow lamented that, please remember, whenever you all celebrate Father's Day and Mother's Day, please remember there are some people who have lost their parent recently. So do remember them.
Right. They appreciate the sensitivity of the community, around them as well, right? Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Moily, for highlighting that to us. Yeah, Pastor Kia Singh, you've been a pastor in our last church, a large church. Yeah, you see and meet many people in their end of life stages and through their last goodbyes. And we have so many funerals in our church. So yeah, Pastor Moily did talk about the role of the churches now and the role of friends in the community. Maybe talk to us about what we provide in our church for the grieving people, grieving community around us.
Yeah, thank you, Lillian. Yeah, as a church, for us, we look at the loss of loved ones very seriously, and we when they grieve, we grieve with them as well. We also, as many of us are involved directly, especially the pastors, directly with the bereaved families. Oftentimes we can actually feel their pain. Pain is so much part of our human life, right? And loss, and we always want to be there when they are mourning as well. As a church, we have provided facilities. Like in our FGA, we have actually a hall that is a really nice hall that actually where they can hold their funeral service and their wake services, provided free of charge for them. They don't have to pay for it. And then we also come along and help them, like Moily says, in all the physical aspects during that period of time, advising them about like their finance, their accounts, and many other things, physical things. And the wonderful thing is that the home fellowships in our church will come along and help them during those days when they are. When we are conducting the funeral service or the wake services. So family members have really appreciated that very much from the church. The other thing also that as far from me as a pastor, this is something that is very close to my heart. For me, when we look at a funeral or a wake service, in a sense, I'm denominational blind. Right. What I mean is that sometimes some of these brothers or sisters who have passed on, they do not have a church which they have been going on regular because they have long illness and they have been away from church for very long, and when they get back to that particular church, the church says that you are no longer my member or something like that. So they were looking for someone to do their last rites. But FGA, we have an open what you call that attitude to whoever needs help. We will help. Not only providing facilities, the pastors will also conduct those funerals. So we not only do the funeral for our own members, but also for other brothers and sisters who need help. And
Right.
A lot of time I get feedback from family members, even non-Christian family members of the deceased, that they really appreciate the church, what we do for them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Kesing. I'm very sure because nowadays the cost of the send off funeral nowadays is just skyrocketing. It's very expensive. So it really helps sometimes that the church come in that area. Yeah. So to all our viewers out there, if you have any questions related to this topic, not necessarily only the things that we have just talked about, do type them in the comments, and we'll try to answer them towards the end of this session later on. So David, I'm coming back to you. So you did mention just now that you lost your precious daughter quite suddenly. And I'd imagine the tremendous pain and grief that you and family had over losing her. So, grief is a way of changing the way we see things, isn't it? The way we see situation, our identity, and even the way we see God and even relate with God. Yeah, it just has a way of changing things. Yeah. So, what is the one key lesson, David, that you have learned about your grief, and what had helped you and your wife thus far?
Well, allow me first of all to say a few words about Joy, my daughter.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful person. She's not only smart, she's creative. She's very gracious, very giving, and very generous. So each Christmas, she'll come home and bring lots of gifts with beautifully decorated boxes. At
Mm,
every family event, she will put a personal touch, a little message here, a creative touch there, a work of excellence here, there, everywhere. So you can imagine during Father's Day and Christmas, uh, how it triggers a lot of memory, and it triggers tears, and sometimes the tears don't seem to stop. In fact, all kinds of everything reminds me of her. There's so much thing that reminds me of her. So I feel ambushed. I feel, without realizing it, I was stuck in grief. I was really stuck in grief. But my wife and I participated in a program called Grief Walk, conducted by yourself, Lilian, and FGA Family Life Ministry. It's
yeah.
a 13-week session. It's very helpful. I would say that maybe so much thing we learn. Maybe I summarize in four things. First of
Mm,
all, the videos have featured guest speakers. Uh, Top speaker like Dr. Norman Wright, family counselor, Dr. Larry Crabb, renowned counselor, and they share very openly how they have lost loved ones and how they walk through their journey of grief, and
mm,
obviously we learn a lot of the new insight, like being stuck in grief, uh, ambush, post post grief trauma, and so forth. All these tips and insight really help lift us up from our grief. That's very helpful. The second thing I learned about grief is the importance of friends. Friends, yeah,
mm,
friends are
yeah.
very important to come and give us support. Um, the in a grief walk session, I like to emphasize a grief walk, not a grief teach. And in a
Mm,
grief walk, we have a lot of facilitators who come alongside us and walk alongside us. And after each video session, we bring you a small group and you walk alongside us. None of them pretend to be expert, but they journey together with us as they share their own grief, and as they provide encouragement and send an email of devotion every now and then. That's really helpful. Also, I find that when my daughter first passed on, a godly Christian leader from the U.S. called all the way from Colorado Spring, and after he just said, "David, I heard that Joy, your Joy has passed on," and he just cried and cried with me on the phone, and that is very
mm,
very therapeutic. That's very helpful. And I have
mm,
another friend who was giving a conference in a talk in Kuching, and he was supposed to fly to Canada the next day. He canceled his flight and came back and rearranged all the wake services for us. And then some others who came and they just hang around. They brought food and just hang around, being present with us. All those are really helpful. Yeah. So
right.
friends are very helpful. Then
Yeah, I would. Sorry,
please go ahead.
David.
Please go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Now, I would agree with David, but
Mm,
you see, it takes vulnerability when you say, I need help,
yeah. Yeah.
about our grief. So I think David and the family, uh, David knew that he was stuck. I think it was wonderful that
Mm,
you say, okay, I need help. I will go to for the grief share, sign yourself
mm,
up. So that is commendable. But
yeah.
because a lot of people, they don't want to enter into their pain. They don't want to enter into the darkness. But
Mm,
sorry, lah, friends, there's no other way but to
mm,
enter into the darkness and to know that the pain and the darkness don't define us, because
Right.
it's our response to it,
Mm.
our response to the suffering and pain that define
Mm.
us. True, darkness has invaded, Jerry Sitzer saying darkness has invaded our soul, but so has light. So
Mm.
when we allow ourselves to be comforted, by God, that is a personal transformation. And we are
Mm.
able to walk into the destiny that God has called us. No doubt,
Mm.
no doubt, even when David shared about joy, I just feel the loss,
Mm.
the joy, so remarkable in her giving, in her generosity, in her
Mm.
creativity, that that this present that she's giving is so personal, with a personal touch. That is a great loss. So that is why we need to ask for help. We need to say, because we need to be accountable and to our own pain and come out of it. But that's take vulnerability. Mm.
Mm.
Thank you for the very insightful comment. Usually, when you have a loss, the natural tendency is to withdraw and to isolate because you don't want to be hurt further
Mm.
and very protective of the one that you love. Jesus say,
Right.
"Blessed are those who mourn; they shall be comforted."
Amen.
If we don't open ourselves and be vulnerable to others, the Father can't comfort us. So we deprive the Father from comforting us. So when we are vulnerable, we're telling the Father, into me see, and then we know into me see, and we develop intimacy, and then the Father can comfort and can heal us. So friends are very important. But I want to
Yeah.
add that friends, sometimes friends. Then the next thing that helps is faith. Faith.
Mm.
Obviously, the video doesn't preach at us, but it slowly, very sensitively and gently lead us on and turn us back to God, to help us set goals and embrace the loss and accept the loss. That is very important. As Christian community, sometimes we are very quick to give advice, to give cliche and say, your daughter's at a better place as she's in heaven. Well, I know that.
Mm. Yeah.
I know that as from the Bible, but it's another thing to experience it. I remember after 2 months, 2.5 months after my daughter passed on, a church friends came to see her and say, Katie, my wife's name is called Katie. He said, Katie, it's been 2.5 months since Joy passed on. You need to move on, and you need to be
Mm.
strong for David. My wife was
Mm.
really hurt. I said, why should I be strong for David? Somebody need to be strong for me. I'm hurting so much. So sometimes
Right.
this share and the things that we say can really hurt. Words can hurt and words can heal. Proverbs
Mm.
25:11 says, words spoken at the right time are like golden apples in silver setting. So we need to say at the right time. And this grief walk session, they're very sensitive and they did it in a very gracious way. And finally, I would say that the fourth thing that's helped me a lot and is very priceless is what I call a fellowship of suffering. After every video session, we'll break into a small group and then we'll share. And I have a wonderful, fantastic group of people that we share. We don't know each other. We never met before. But when you go into the small group, we feel very safe. We feel open, and we come together with a common bond of suffering. There's nothing to hide because we all come to seek help. There's nothing to lose because we really lost our loved ones, and nothing to
Mm.
prove because we really want to get help. So we share very openly, and in the sharing in the fellowship of suffering, it's amazing when one hurting soul connect with another grieving soul. There's a
Mm.
potential to give birth to hope, to give birth to life, and to
Mm.
give birth to healing. So the fellowship of suffering is very, very powerful. And we had this small group chat group we did house, Grief Walk small group, and then eventually before we end the session, we became good friends fellowship, and we met for lunch and so forth. And there's
Mm.
so much catharsis as we support, encourage, and help one another along.
Mm. Yeah, that's very powerful, isn't it? Friends, family, and also our faith in God. And you brought about those out very well. And I also hear, in a way, from Moily, both you and David says that grief is something you cannot go around it. right? You just have to go through it. Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of the things. So I'm just wondering, like, of course, Dr. Moily, you talk about, when we are vulnerable, then God can come through for us. But at the same time, there are this thing about, when we are in grief, we just cannot see God in as much as we want to, right? That's what I was talking about just now. The way we see things and the way we see God changes sometimes, that there is that ceiling, so to speak, that you just can't break through there. But somehow or other, this is the stuckness that we have. And so this vulnerability that we are talking about is also, isn't that the emotions that we're having, right? The negative emotions, we can't seem to, process our grief, our emotions. It doesn't jive with our faith. Yeah. I think Dr. Moily, Moily, in your book, you talk about that, the struggle when our negative emotions doesn't jive with our faith. Yeah. So so that's a struggle, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just wondering, David, I know a little bit about your story. Can you give us maybe about, just now I asked about how does it help your wife when there was as a word, people want to comfort us, right? But the comfort that people give us sometimes, even though we know it's right, it just didn't help us at that time. But there's a certain time, suddenly it helps us. Yeah, David, maybe you share with us.
Yeah. One of the things that my wife Katie struggled with was she had this question of why God would take joy away when she's at the prime of her life.
Mm,
Uh, one of the things that we have as a family habit is we all claim promises. So at the end of the year, before the start of next year, we will go to get, my wife and I will go away for a retreat for several days. We come back with fresh promises for the ministry, for the family. And then when Joy passed away, I got the family together and we reviewed the promises that God gave. And I told my children, oh, friends come and like Dr. Lee said, after a while, people will not come anymore. It's God, it's all whom we have. And the promises of God are what we cling on to. But as we review those promises, it seems that it's contrary to what those promises say. Why is this happening? So we
right.
were struggling, and my wife was this great struggle. And then when this lady from church shared this with her, it really hurts her. But nevertheless, we persevere in the grief walk program, and when we reached somewhere midway or later part in the program, there was a talk about heaven, and then all the guest speaker were asked, "Would you want your loved one back on earth?" And none of them say no, because they are in a better place than here. And suddenly it clicks, and there was a kairos moment, so to speak. There was a breakthrough in Katie's. It is a paradigm shift, and she felt that, well, it's better for our daughter to be there than to be here, because she's a much better place, and it'd be very selfish for me to insist that she is here. Yeah, so that provide that breakthrough. And also some of our friends share a verse from Isaiah 57. It says, "The righteous perish, and no one takes it to heart. The devout are taken away, and no one understands." The righteous are taken away. The righteous taken away to be spared from further evil. Uh, those who walk rightly with God, they enter their peace and find their rest as they lie in death. Well, that was very powerful at the right moment. It was a word to us, and that brings a lot of comfort, a lot of assurances, a lot of healing. Yeah, so a timely word can be very helpful.
Mm. Yeah, that's powerful, isn't it? To think about, Joy had everything, I mean, she had so much when she was here, and hoping this, she will enjoy what is here. But the Rhema word was like, what better thing in heaven for her, and you were able to release her in that sense. Yeah. But the Rhema word has come very, very powerful to make that a reality for, a healing for Katie, your wife. Yeah, thanks for that, David. Yeah, Moily, I come back to you again, like, or even for Pastor Casing, that, in this process of grief, when you watch and also, in your study and all that, is there a duration of time in which we can expect people to get over their grief, because very often we go and see people and we minister to people as pastors, and sometimes we wonder why they are, still grieving. So is there a duration of time that we can expect to get over?
Personally, in my opinion, there's no time limit for grieving. However, the good news is, with assistance and when you do grief work, like what David has shared, attending grief share and watching videos and doing your workbook, journaling, writing it down, all this help to unpack your grief, and the magnitude of the grief, minimalize. So in a sense, it's like it will not hit you as hard as before. It's like the waves during the in the sea, at the sea, during the storm. Yes, grief can still be a companion, but it doesn't hit as hard. I remember, this John Lennon's wife, O'Connell. She said, John was shot at New York, John Lennon, on December 8th. And she said, December 8th is not the only day I think of him. I think of him every day. I wish I could block it. You understand what she's saying? Yeah. And that was about 38, 39 years ago. 1980, he died. Yeah. So there is no actually time limit, but you do live in the present. You don't live in grief present, but you live in the new reality of what God has in store for us, and live in the hope of a new life. And also grief has determining factors of mourning. One author said there are several factors. It's like, who was the person who died? What is the nature of attachment with this person?
Right.
How the person died. I think you can have that shock and the trauma when it's a sudden death. And suicide is terrible, death. And your social variables, in the sense that your social network and support system. So then your financial variables, and also your concurrent stresses. Like if the person who died is the sole breadwinner, you have a lot of stress. So that affects the grief. And to me, time does not heal. To me, it's God used the time to heal. Because memory has such a foothold, the suffering. We all have our data. So unless you heal those memories, release the painful emotion, allow God to heal them and be willing to let go and say goodbye, then it's easier to move on. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Pastor Casing, any thoughts, any questions?
Just a thought linking what David say about the wife, asking the question, why, I think this is a very common question, and it should be asked and allow the person who is grieving to ask. And oftentimes especially people of faith in the Christian circles like that, we are so have this triumphalistic and moving on kind of attitude that we actually do not allow people to ask the question why, especially when the one that we love pass on in a manner, like in the case of Joy, is so young, as if I'm the father, I would definitely ask why, I ask God why so young, why now? Those are valid questions, and we can be vulnerable like the psalmist, you see, that often ask God during those times. And as far as when we are mourning, many of us, we do not really fully understand the depth of the pain they are going through, and that has to do with the relationship and also the attachment they have with the one they have lost, because pain is very much part of a human life. But also we as Christians, we also understand that pain is also the process of redemption. And so that's why we say we mourn and grieve, not as people without hope, right? And I think for us, when we grieve and feel the pain, what is signifying to us that the person that has been with us has been such a privilege, like for David and Kathy, it's such a privilege for them to be their her father and mother, and so when she goes away, we can really feel that kind of pain, and I think pain has relationship in related to the depth of love we have for the person,
Right.
I think if a person does not mourn, I don't think we have actually learned how to love well or love deeply. Because
That's
pain is very much, love is so much, part of it. We feel the pain because we love.
Yes, we feel the pain because we love. That's leading us to another question about, is there such a thing as unhealthy grieving? Then how do we know when the person is grieving, then that is unhealthy? So that we as people who are wanting to help them will know when somebody is grieving unhealthily. Is there such a thing? Maybe.
To me, unhealthy way is when the bereaved deny the impact of the loss and associated with the death and the irreversibility of the loss. You try to minimalize the grief. You sort of thought through the grief, but you have not felt through the grief because you want to hurry up. You want to get back to normal, as soon as possible. But in this way, it's unhealthy because you are shutting off your emotion and you're suppressing your emotion. And the emotion, when you suppress it, it can show up in your body as an illness. I remember one person who, because of a divorce, she lost so much of her hair.
So there are some signs, and that you see signs and symptoms when
bodily. This is what we call psychosomatic diseases. But you see, Jesus, he himself was vulnerable. He cried at Lazarus' grave, and he was true to his emotions. When someone is not moving towards restoration and keep wanting to stay at the loss orientation, not wanting to adapt to changes, refusing love and refusing to live a life. To me, that is unhealthy, because if you are aware, God is sending help to you, because He will not leave us desolate or forsaken one. We cannot push all these people away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So before we take the questions from the viewers, yeah. So I did mention just now that many bereaved people, they are in dilemma, yeah, about the negative and painful emotions, and it doesn't sync with the faith. And what are some ways? Practical ways, maybe Molly or David, both, all three of you, you can share with us. What can they do to journey towards restoration of peace and joy? Because what can they do, to even confront the loss? Or is there something that I can do?
I like to look at the life of Job. Job, he said, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That means you suspend all your unhappiness, and because your experience is reality, but your experience is not the truth. We may not know everything about God, but we cannot doubt His character. It's easy to sing God is good all the time in the church, but when suffering hit you, we must say, okay, God is good, but I'm not feeling it. You can lament, you can question, because if you look at Job's life, in chapter 3, when he finally opened his mouth, he cursed the day he was born. He said, I wish I died at the womb. And God was not angry with him. God was angry with his 3 friends because they condemned Job. Their theology is that, Job, you are a sinner, you better repent. So we all know, of course, from hindsight that Job undeserved suffering, but Job didn't know. And there were heated arguments, between him and the friends. If not, the book of Job will be shorter. If not so long. So at the end of it, Job was honest. Job was honest to us. I think we can live with unanswered question when we lament and know that God has heard us. God is a relational God. God will hear us, and He will come and He showed Himself to Job in other ways. He never answered Job's questions, but He showed Himself to Job. He showed Job that I am the creator. And in His loving sovereignty, Job began to recognize the big picture, how God is the God of creator, how God in His wisdom ruled His creation. So, so that is our God.
So it took time for Job to really understand actually who God is to him, right? Is that what you're trying to say as well, right?
Yeah, and in the meantime, you can lament and keep asking God questions.
Right, you can ask at the same time you can lament, and patience and waiting upon God in that sense, as God will come through for you. Yeah, right.
Before I heard of you, now I've seen you. So there's a process before he gets to that point. But one thing I learned is that in grief, explanations, no matter how great, do not heal hurting emotions. So it's not the theology that helps people.
Yeah.
It's the friend that come alongside and walk with you that really help you heal you.
Right.
So I was very blessed that when I went to a wedding and somebody that told me that they were greatly healed. This couple, I don't know them. They say we are greatly healed, and they went to grief walk, and they say you must go and see Pastor Lillian, which I did. I've never regretted that. So I think some of these, there is hope and there are resources available that need to be made known more so that people can walk through that. And then in my journey, I found that you go through a journey before you realize, before you understand all the theology. Um, um, the process that I've gone through is, first of all, shock, trauma and shock. Then the struggle with the guilt, regret, how I could be a better father, I could spend more time with my daughter. And then the why questions. Then before I get to the stage of surrender and embrace and accept the loss and God's sovereignty, that His ways are higher than our ways and He's not higher than our thoughts. That's easy to say on hindsight, but somebody must walk alongside you before that become a reality. And then finally went through a settled peace that we can move on. That life will never be the same again, but life can have a new meaning and a fresh purpose, and life can be good again. So getting somebody to walk alongside us is very important, and knowing what the available resources are also very important from the practical point of view. Yeah, but explanation never heal hurting emotions. Never.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, David, because basically you're talking about friends, support that help you process, yeah? So whether it's through a group work or I guess you go for therapy sometimes, yeah, just to process the feelings that you're having. It's very, very powerful, isn't it? So sometimes people give you, like you said, advice and all that doesn't really help until you do the processing yourself. And to process it, to finally make meaning of what you've just gone through. Yeah, if I got you right, David. Yeah. So maybe I will take a moment to look at least one question that for the lack of time, maybe one question that one of our viewers have put up. Yeah. Can we put up the questions? It goes something like, how do people grieve during this period of MCO, where support and physical access to the bereaved ones have been limited compared to the normal grief journey before the pandemic? Yeah. So yeah, this is the current things that we are experiencing right now. Restriction of movement, restriction of how we support. Any thoughts how we can do that?
For some people, writing helps a lot. Writing out your thoughts, journaling. Because when you write, it clarify what you're thinking. And in fact, C.S. Lewis, after his wife died, his journal, he journal, and then it was published, and the book was A Grief Observed. So, but nowadays also we have social media, WhatsApp. We can send encouraging messages to these people, and perhaps they could go to read other people's blog on suffering. A lot of people are overcomers. There are lots of blog people do write, and do read encouraging messages from Christians.
All right.
I think during
so
this
those
time,
are practical ones when there's a lot of restrictions. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead,
From
Cassie.
my observation during this MCO, the number of funerals that we have conducted, I think the most challenging thing is that the bereaved family is not able to be physically present, even in the last moment. Either they cremate or bury. So that is, I think, the most challenging thing that for the bereaved, that they're unable to say or even say the goodbyes to their loved ones at that last moment. Kind of thing.
Right.
This is the most challenging one, and I think
Right.
if you
And
can
that's very
able to
painful, right?
help, yeah, and if you are able to help them to in whatever ways to enable them to kind of bring a closure at least to that,
Mm,
learning to say goodbye in a very meaningful way and in a restorative way. Then, but I find it very challenging because they're physically not there, and
mm,
because of the limitation, you know,
right.
especially if they are actually overseas, you know, you're attending your loved one's funeral, your mom or your dad funeral from afar. It's not
Mm,
easy, the emotional
yeah.
to help
So
out.
that, yeah, the restrictions is not helping, right? So in terms of what we could use, like Moily says, is perhaps journaling. She says, writing down our thoughts and all that, and using of if we know the family members, or if we know them, we have their contacts, to contact them via social media or WhatsApp. And thank God we have all these things nowadays. In fact, maybe as we are closing, just David had mentioned the grief walk, and that we having in the church as well. Uh, During this time of MCO, we actually did the whole 14 weeks, 16 weeks altogether, one face-to-face, and then there was a lockdown, and the rest of the 14 weeks we did it online. At first we thought it was not going to work, but it really was working. So and then after, there was the RMCO for us, and then we met our last session. We did the rituals. It's a closure for the whole program, and that was really good. So there are ways in means that we can actually support one another. Online is very powerful. Sometimes we feel that it's not working, but it does. Yeah. So I'm just also responding to the question, asking, what can we do? So I'm afraid our time slowly is going. Yeah, but I'm just wanting us to take away something very powerful as we leave today. As we end today's talk. Yeah, Pastor Kasing, if you have would you like to share parting words or some thoughts with us? Yeah.
I think for us who are grieving, for our friends out there who are grieving at this point in time, especially for us who are Christians who knows the Lord Himself, the verse that came to me is that there's one verse where they say it's the shortest verse in the Bible. It says Jesus wept, and I think it's a great assurance for us to know that the God that we believe, our Savior, our Lord, is with us if we are grieving, is actually also weeping with you and with us. So
Yeah.
that is a great consolation, I think, as a believer, that you are not alone, right? Yeah, we have friends, we have community in the church, but more than that, our Lord Himself is also mourning and grieving with us at this time.
Right.
And that is for me a great consolation. Yeah.
Right. All right. So we are coming to an end of our talk today. Indeed, if I may say that grief indeed is a very intense human experience. Yeah. So a lot of times we struggle because we don't recognize, we are not able to express the humanness of us, our emotions and all that. But at the same time, we hear from our panel today that that we can ask God, especially when we have all these questions. We can talk to God. We can ask the why questions, and yeah, the biggest hope that we have is that when we run to God, and in our situation, He understands because He went through it Himself. Jesus went through the suffering ahead of us. So yeah, so that end our talk today, and to us, and we'll be back again in 2 weeks' time with a topic to build families, and it's building families and homes that are attractional. So this Family Heart Talk is happening every second and fourth Sundays. So hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. Yeah. So do like us on Facebook. Then you'll get the notification of what's up next. Yeah. All right. So thank you again, David and Moily and Pastor Kiasing, and
Thank you.
God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.